A sheet of plywood will be your starting point for this project. Step 1 is put a very high quality primer on the plywood. Pick your pattern that you want to make. Lay down some carbon paper. Put your pattern down on the carbon paper. Trace the pattern onto the wood with a pencil or marker. Now you have a carbon outline of your project on the plywood. Drilling holes allows you to put your blade in to do all your inside cuts. Then you start cutting. Jigsaw works perfect for this type of project. Now the real work begins. Start adding color. Protect all your hard work by putting a clear coating. Make sure it's non-yellow and protective spray over it. And hang it up on your house. Maybe throw some Christmas tree bulbs up there to add some accent to your project.
Okay, normally when you're tracing a pattern, you take the carbon, put the carbon side down, and then put your pattern here. And then when you trace it, it puts an impression on the plywood below. If you want the mirror image of something, easy way to get that, just take your carbon paper, turn it upside down. Put your pattern back on. Now when you draw, the image will be a mirror copy on the back side, so that you just take your paper, turn it over once more time, and then you retrace your new image. And it'll be an exact mirror image, for example, of this wolf's head. One head will be pointing that way, and the mirror image will be pointing that way, so you can frame something. Sometimes you want to take a small object that you like. For example, my bride's got a tool called a cricket, kind of a cool tool, and she can make these little teeny bonsai trees. Well, I wanted a bigger one. So that's where you come in and you pick up something called a pantograph. This tool here uses a series of levers. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to set this up so that you know what size you want it, and as you trace your pattern, it's going to redraw your object in a much larger size. So I blew this little pattern here up to this template, and then I went ahead and transferred the template over to some wood.
When you have a template instead of a pattern, it's much quicker to transfer the object over to your piece of wood. You put the template down on the piece of wood, take some spray paint, and just spray paint around the edges of the template, and it'll transfer that image across to the plywood, and then you can actually see it and cut out the stuff that's not actually painted. The pattern's since faded because of all the work I've been doing on top of the board.
I went ahead and cut it out. We primered it, painted it properly, and then we mounted it on the fence.
The thickness of the wood for any project is of primary concern. Plywood that's cut too small will warp, it'll break, it'll splinter, basically it'll fall apart on you. To make this project, I had to upgrade the plywood to 3/4 inch thick plywood. That increases your workload considerably. 3/4 inch plywood is also much more expensive, but as you can see, the results are sometimes spectacular. Here's a workaround for using that thick plywood if only a small section of your project is thin. On the back side of your project, simply attach by glue or some other method some supporting dimensional lumber, and that'll give you support and stiffness in your weak area of the plywood. A lot cheaper than 3/4 inch plywood. Finally, I can't emphasize enough to use a very good quality primer on the plywood before you even begin the project. On this Christmas polar bear, we ran out of primer. We were rushed, so we went ahead and painted it without the primer. Less than 2 years later, you can see the paint is flaking and peeling off, and the whole thing has to be reworked. Well, I think I've used up enough of your time, and I want to thank you for watching.